Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I'm Nerdarch Dave. Today I'm joined by Aaron Miller. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Dave.
Excited to have you on. You are a prominent artist. You've done work for Dungeons and Dragons, Magic the Gathering. Your stuff looks fantastic. A mutual friend of ours said, "Hey, you should talk to this guy," and I said, "Sure, why not?" So
Well,
we love to talk to different people involved in the industry and the scene. If you would like to introduce yourself and tell people a little bit about you, that would be awesome.
yeah, sure. My name's Aaron Miller. I'm a fantasy illustrator. I live in Chicago, and I've been working on Magic the Gathering for about 10 years now. Got a little over 100. I know I have over 100 cards. I always mix up what's released and what's not released.
Oops.
So, so we're still around easily 130 total, probably 115 released. Worked on Dungeons and Dragons 5e, a few illustrations in there. I think the last one I had some pieces in was Mordecai's. And but yeah, mostly I do a lot of work for Magic. And
Well, that's unfortunate because that book doesn't exist anymore.
I know I can't change those things, but I
Yeah,
just keep making awesome art.
yeah. It's kind of crazy too, because Morning Canaans and Volo's Guide has so much great lore pieces in there. For GMs to draw from.
So that's right now being replaced by the multiverse stuff,
Yeah,
right?
Monsters of the Multiverse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just picked that up, and I was thumbing through. I was like, oh, there's some of my work. So
So it
uh,
lives on.
yeah, it does. It does.
So you currently also have a Kickstarter going on. You were nice enough to send us some cards for said Kickstarter
Woohoo.
for Wild Shapes. There's a link in the description as well as their link to your link tree with all of your links to follow you across the interweb. So go check that out. Check out the Kickstarter. So what inspired you to make the cards for Skwirl's Wild Shape cards?
Okay, so like the inspiration. Well, first, Squirrels is my character's name. He's a furbolg, and it turns out that furbolgs mainly go by nicknames. So the name was given to me by one of the other players. So that's that part of it. And while playing a druid, like the actions coming up, and you want to shift, and what do I shift into? And I'm flipping through books, and I've got stuff all over the place, and I kept thinking to myself, I wish I had like the spell cards that folks have. I wanted something that I could just refer to just as easily. And I think I just instantly went to cards because of all the magic card stuff that I'm associated with. And and I couldn't find anything to suit what I wanted. So I just decided to start making my own.
So one of the fun things and interesting things about the cards that I think you did is super helpful is the fact that you know there are three different colors, so that people can easily pick out what requirements they meet. So you have let's see, like a blue, green, and brown colors.
Right.
Pick out your flyers, your swimmers, and your land-based critters.
Right. We were just playing the other week. We were in a boat, and I knew something. If something happens while we're on a boat,
Uh,
this is my chance to finally turn into like something really water based. So I'm
uh,
like going through, and I'm just pulling all the blues, and then of course heading, checking out all my CR numbers. Like, okay, I'm probably going to go with a one, being a Circle of the Druid, level 5, so I can only do ones. And so I'm like scrambling so I'm not like slowing down the action. The last thing that I want to do is slow down the action. And I pick a few of them that I line them up on my little dice tray, so I have some options depending on what's going on. And that's sort of how I roll with it.
you just gotta watch. You don't choose the shark when you're fighting Sahagins.
Well,
Sahagins have this interesting ability where they can communicate with and control sharks,
oh,
and
so then
and they
I
just do it. Right? There's no saving throw. It's not a spell. It's not there's nothing to it. So if you happen to be a druid and a shark at the time, you're gonna do what the Sahagin tells you to.
so that that would be one of those things where it would either end up in uh, an awesome comedic story
Yeah.
because I'm genuinely pretty unlucky. I don't think I'm Will Wheaton level unlucky for my
Uh,
dice rolls, but at least at my table, that's the closest I am. I like the DM will just literally put my name last for any initiative roll. Just it's just
by
generally.
default. What you're saying is like once you turn in a shark and you blend in with all the enemy sharks, they're like, how do we know which shark's ours? The one that keeps missing.
Yeah, that'll be me. That'll be me.
That's funny. Um, how did you get into D&D? Because you had mentioned before we went live that you're kind of new to the hobby.
Yeah. So I've just been playing. I'm not really sure how to describe the how you play. Like I played a few sessions a few years ago of Adventurers Guild where we met up at like a little cafe, and that went well until I don't know what happened. Either I got busy or it just seemed like it was falling apart. Um, the 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 group tended to kind of play like a video game where they just wanted to get through everything,
Yeah.
get the stuff, and I don't know, that just didn't gel with me. And uh, over the winter, I knew my neighbors played, but they finally invited me, and trepidatiously, they didn't seem to think that I might want to, but as soon as he asked, I was into it, and I was able to grab some other friends to kind of like grow the group a little bit, and it's been amazing ever since. We so I was able to pull out of storage my miniature collection from the 80s
Yeah.
that I had been collecting since I was a kid. I know I had over time like let a lot of pieces go, but I was very excited to have these things that, you know, any other year previously, if someone had asked, I might have given you my collection. But now we're using them.
So had you been a mini painter before? Like that was kind of one of your hobbies?
Yeah, oh my cow, I started getting miniatures probably back in the mid 80s. There was a, a little used toy store that kept them in like those big glass water jugs.
Yeah.
So someone already had a giant collection. They sold this guy. And the way it would work is that they were 10 cents each, and you only got what he would shake out.
Uh-huh.
So if there was one at the bottom, you had to spend all your money to have him shake out some minis for you to get to. I brought him all of my Star Wars toys, all of my GI Joes. I brought everything I could trade for because I just it was fantasy. I loved fantasy,
Yeah.
and I didn't really. I was just getting into this. Like, what is this? And another friend of mine would go. So it's like, if he got there before me, that means that he might get something cool that I wasn't able to get because he brought his dollar to get 10. And so it was always this little race. So when I was a little kid, yeah, I started collecting minis, and then we started painting them together. By the time I was in high school, I was doing it for work. You know, I would paint them for other people. Um,
What was the going rate back then for a mini painter?
oh my God, I probably was getting paid like $1 a mini or something. It was terrible. I don't think I was very good, you know, but at the time I thought it was very good. But it was
I
I
can
love
tell you
doing.
one thing: you weren't very good at business.
No, no, I wasn't. but I really enjoyed it. And you would think, how
Yeah.
did I play D&D? I had all the books. I would go to the hobby shop. I would get the books because I love the artwork. And there was never any kind of connection to another person that played. I did tell you I thought it'd be kind of fun to just tell the people watching that my first encounter with the game being played was as a Cub Scout on my way to summer camp, and the kids in the seats behind me were playing D&D, and I wanted to play so bad, but I wasn't cool enough to play D&D with them.
Were they the older kids in Scouts?
They might have been just a little older,
Yeah.
so it could have been like, "No, you're too young, kid," but it was just a group of kids that all knew each other.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they had their own group, and they weren't going to let me in. So I had been wanting to play ever since that interaction on the bus.
Oh my God! When you're too nerdy for the Boy Scouts playing D&D.
Yeah, I have still enjoyed it ever since, to the point where, like, I mean, I'm an illustrator, and
Yeah.
I've got to work with Wizards of the Coast on D&D products
Jokes on them.
pretty much. But and now I'm playing, and I play a druid, which I kind of stole from my wife, who I got to play. She wanted to play a druid, and the idea that I was throwing out, as I had created a wild surge table for my druid. It's a little mild compared to sorcerer's wild surge, but I worked with my DM on how to make something that just didn't like ruin the game for a druid. I wanted it to affect my shaping. Like, the first idea was like, wouldn't it be funny if you want to turn into a bear, but you turn into a squirrel? So that was the original idea. But if you play long enough, the last thing you need is to have a character you need to depend on just completely like destroying everything by wasting one of your two wild shapes on
Yeah.
becoming an animal that just. So I just redesigned everything to be a little more fun. Like, maybe I turned pink rather than a different animal.
I'm falling. I need to turn to something with wings, and you're a fish.
Exactly. So yeah, I'm glad he talked me out of it, but it has made it pretty fun to like try these different things out, and again, I love thumbing through my cards while we're
Yeah.
talking. Which one am I going to try next? And uh, I just turned 6, so I get to start using my CR2s. So I'm very excited about that.
Nice. I played a Warforged Druid in like a one shot, which I was like, can I look like a mechanical version of the animals when I wild shape?
That would be perfect, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
And then every time I watch it, I have to go
yeah, that's right. Oh, I
for
love it.
like
Yeah,
10 minutes. We're like, we get it, Dave. You think you're playing a transformer?
but that's perfect. I love
Yeah.
it.
You know what? I'm great at amusing myself. So if nothing else, um, so folks have been asked. There's been a let's see, Cap Tokyo. I can't read. Asked if I've showed the cards a little bit, but not really. Honestly, me showing the cards is probably not nearly as effective as going over to the Kickstarter page, where you can see the full art um, for them. But I will say, like, I really do like the layout. It's very clean. It's really easy to see the important information on here. And the way the deck came arranged is by CR, so you just go in because when you're wild shaping, that's going to be one of the most important thing is going to be like, what can I actually turn into, and then the fact that they're color coded based on Druid requirements, like does it have a was it swim speed or can they fly? So
Right.
you can just sort and be like, okay, these are the ones that are actually usable to me right now. Uh,
Right.
there's also an extra card in here for your Patreon, which I was like, why is this shark wearing a harness? I didn't see the rider at first. I have terrible eyesight, um, and it's not very well lit in here. So I was just like, why is that where I'm like, oh, there's a rider. That's
Yeah,
super
for
cool.
I do a lot of tokens for TCG players,
Yeah.
including Magic players. So that was for the flying shark token.
Oh, that's a
So
flying shark.
yeah, so I think it's
But are there lasers?
yeah, it's their little play on like the Sharknado-y type
Hmm.
uh, memes, and of course I leaned into some like a little bit of Warcraft.
Yeah.
Like, well, if I had a goblin would certainly totally have a flying shark mount. So that's why I leaned into that one.
Have you delved into any DMing yet?
I did. I tried. I did it twice. I did a little one shot that I had found, uh, and I wanted to try and experience that side of the table, and then I went to create my own and see how that went, and I learned a lot. uh, that's actually, man, you learn so much when you go to start creating everything yourself. Even I was reading all about like the five dungeon or 5 room rules, or the five.
5 room dungeon. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
It's a
went
great
down that.
concept.
I tried all of it, and the amazing amount of things that you just can't account for. That it. My neighbor did say he's like, just because it's a one shot, generally you're never going to get through it in one session. I know the pros can, but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it
Well,
was a close one.
it it is hard to get the pacing right when you're not experienced at running
Yes,
games, right?
yes,
But as you do it more, then it becomes easier. And also, like, even that being said, you never know what the players are going to do. And also they want different things out of the game. I know that like Ted ran one shot where one of the players expressed they're a little disappointed that he started them like right at the adventure because they wanted to be in town and do that stuff. But we know that what'll happen if we do that. Like we'll never get to the adventure. And
right,
then but oddly enough, there was another adventure that he did that, is like here's the adventure location in the center of this town. The players did nothing did want to do wanted to do nothing but go shopping and do all this other stuff. And he's like, look, you guys are this level. Anything that you could possibly have bought and you would already have, you can have it. Just put it on your character sheet. Don't worry about gold, especially if it's like mundane, items. No, didn't matter. And I was like, I just thought it was so funny because they never even got to the adventure.
I, I could see how that happens. I
Yeah.
could totally see how that happens. I I the little bit of the story that was supposed to be like almost just an incidental like a flavor,
Yeah.
walking down uh the side of a cliff with some wooden planks to kind of make it a little scary. And I didn't expect my one of the players to show up with, like you just mentioned, a Warforged
Uh-huh.
character that's going to be half a ton.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like I didn't plan for that, so now we're going to spend 40 minutes trying to get this character across these planks that I hadn't intended to spend all that time on that. But it was very enlightening to how to kind of think about those things when you are going to design one for your players.
Yeah.
No one can anticipate that for a generic encounter, but if you're creating one for your own players. It's
Well,
nice to know a few things.
it's funny. Some of the people on here may have already heard this story, but like, so we ran campaigns for D&D in the castle, and the most dangerous encounter that I had for my players was literally something I said. It was like flavor text. This is going to be a little bit of an inconvenience, and it was like the tunnel spirals downward at a little bit of a steep slope. What are you guys going to do to traverse it safely? And they're like, I'm gonna surf my shield down like Legolas.
Oh,
And so I had to come up with like a essentially a skill challenge for them on the fly, and which inevitably they took more damage during the from the whole entire campaign, I think, from just because they wanted to do this one weird thing than anything I've actually planned throughout the game.
oh,
Because once one player said that, they're like, "Oh yeah, we're all doing that."
and I would have been the one to roll like a 2 or 3 on the skill check
Yeah. So
because
like
I
they had to make like
I do.
athletics checks every time there was like a turn, right, in order to keep it going.
Oh, that's awesome. I love it. But those make some of the best stories because they're gonna never forget that tunnel ever.
Yeah, and so like I guess my main point is like you can't. There's no way to anticipate what your players are going to do. Something to you is a throwaway comment to just either it's just background or just get them to think. Like if they're like, hey, I'm gonna take some pittance, drive them in the ground, and we'll just use a rope to get down. I would have been like, sure, and no skill checks, no nothing. That seems legit to me. But you just never know. It's the meme, right?
Yeah.
Where you're like the players are like, you must have spent hours, planning this, and the DM looks at notes and it's like sexy goblin in tavern, and then that's it, right? And sometimes that's all you need because you can't predict what they're gonna do.
Right. So, do you ever try and plan it? I would. I just kind of think sometimes with all of that experience, there's like I'm going to try a little something to make this memorable.
So I kind of do like a mix. I've been actually doing a lot more planning than I usually do on my more recent sessions, but I've also definitely showed up with 3 lines on a piece of paper and been like, yeah, we can make something happen with this, and an encounter in my back pocket because you just never know what they're gonna try. It's like the last session, they're like they wanted to do a prison break and try and break someone out of prison, and so I had all month to prepare, and that morning I start writing out my notes. I'm like, well, how would they create this? How would this prison look? What would this prison look like in this particular city? And I just jotted something down real quick. Really didn't think it was too crazy. They got the blueprints to it, and they're like, "Oh, this is impossible." And so I'm like, so they end up executing it, but they had to go about it a much different way.
So I'm going to do another one shot as a DM at Gen Con. Just a little group in the hotel, but a bunch of other artists uh, want me to run this thing. So they're like, "You're going to do it, right?" And I'm like,
What are
"Yes."
you running?
I'm going to do a little adventure I found by someone that created them called the Adventurer's Tome. I think this person has mostly made a lot of maps, but they
Okay.
made so far 2 adventures that like it's just like on one page. I think it had won the 1 page adventure contest maybe a couple years ago. I found it on Reddit and I was like,
Yeah.
this is perfect for my skill level
Yeah.
as a DM. It doesn't have a ton of story. Everything's laid out. I know what I need to add to make it interesting, and it seems like I can hopefully wrap it up in an evening of of artists who are gonna. I don't know if they're gonna be distracted, um, but it should be pretty entertaining.
So, Nerdator Doug from our team wants to know, um, as an illustrator, is description a priority for you as a DM and player?
I think uh, I think we thrive on it. I know my when my neighbor has noticed that he's our DM most of the time, and he's the table's full of illustrators. So there's a lot of descriptions for like what we're doing, um, and we instantly understand everything he says, and we might sketch stuff out. So he really enjoys that aspect of interacting with just how we think and visually.
So you have other illustrators in that game as well?
Yeah. I mentioned Alan Panicle. He's been over a few times.
Okay.
Tony Moy and his girlfriend have been over. Uh, Another illustrator friend locally, Julian, he's been over a few times. And then at Gen Con, it'll be Tyler Walpole, Tom Babby, and his family, uh, and me. And then so I've sprinkled in a few family members, and it should be interesting.
How how cool is it to be that kid, right, that runs the game for you guys? And he's like, oh yeah, like he like offhandedly he's throwing out like all these big art names that are in the industry that people like own products with their names in it, their arts in it, their magic, maybe if they're into Magic the Gathering, they have the magic cards. Um like and is it a big deal for them? Do they realize it? Or is this something they're going to look back upon much later in life and be like, oh wow, crap, I should have been scared when I was running those games?
No, I think that had passed a couple years ago when he first he was a little younger and realized that I did the magic cards because him and his friends were playing a lot of Magic at the time, as well as D&D. But again, I was really just connected to Magic, so I would get some product and I would give them commander sets and play mats and stuff. So there's a little bit of that nervousness, but
Yeah.
that's all since washed away. Now I'm just neighbor Aaron, and it's no big deal. You know, they've had some relatives come in where they get to kind of do a little bit of bragging, and then I they like, do you think you can come over and like talk to them a little bit? They're really young, so I was like, I do try and try and take those opportunities to like make them look good. So I scrambled and I made like these like goodie bags for these kids that had magic cards in them, prints, play mats, just like all this stuff that they weren't expecting. I just kind of want to look like, yeah, I'm this cool neighbor. Here's this bag full of stuff, and like the little kids were just, thanks, bye. They just took their bags and ran off to see what they got.
Yeah. They no longer cared about you, or the
Yeah,
big deal you're trying to make. They're like, ooh, stuff.
yeah, but it was still fun. I
You are a
appreciate.
cool neighbor. No, none of my neighbors have done anything cool like that for me. So it's definitely fun. So, yeah, next show for you, Gen Con?
Gen Con. Well, I've got a Magic event. I'll be a Command Fest Indy, so I'm going to Indy a whole bunch in the next month and a half. So I'll be at Command Fest Indy, then I'll be at Gen Con, and then another Command Fest or Magic event.
So, are you a Magic player?
I'm actually a more experienced D&D player now than a Magic player. I can play if you hand me a deck.
Yeah,
Can't build a deck.
I don't know if I've actually played a full game of Magic the Gathering.
It's fun. I'm just not good at it,
Yeah,
but I enjoy it. I enjoy the community is just as amazing. Just the people that love the game. They love it for the art. They love it for the competitive nature. I love the cosplayers that get involved. So a lot of times when I get to play, it's generally going to be in a situation where maybe it's for charity, or it's an after event, or it's usually like an event that I get invited to. And it's rare, but once in a while, my buddy Tony, who plays with us, Tony Moy, he's really good at playing Magic and teaching it. So he'll invite me to like a 5-man commander game, which again I'm terrible, but the little spin on it. Have you ever played a game called Sheriff?
That does not sound familiar. What is sheriff?
Well, there I think it's very similar to uh, werewolf or something. Where there's a sheriff, and you got to figure out who the bandit is.
Okay, okay.
At the deputy, and then like one guy, you have to figure out who the big bad guy is. Sort of, I swear there's other games where you have to figure out who the vampire is or who the werewolf is, and so that makes the little teams kind of like work back and forth, so you just don't gang up on one person because you don't know who you actually have to gang up on.
Yeah.
Um, so that's made it interesting for me since I'm such a horrible player. But I did one tournament, a Friday Night Magic, with a deck someone handed me that they just gave me a good deck, and the players had bad cards, and I actually won. I can read the cards, so I can play the cards. I don't have a lot of strategy, but I still kept, like, when you win a Friday Night Magic, you get like a special card. So I kept that. All the other prizes I gave to the guy that invited me and let me use his deck, but I was like, I just want to keep this one card as a memory.
Nice. My son has recently got into into Magic. I think he's currently spending all of his money on it. I don't know what he's doing. He's
Oh, okay.
basically an adult at this point. It's on him. So I just know things keep appearing in the mail.
Well, I'll have to send you some tokens for him if he's
Oh,
got
cool. He would definitely appreciate that.
he
Uh,
definitely.
so how cool is it to see like something you've made turned into a magic card, or opening a book and then, like, I made that? Do you still get the same thrill, or is that as if long since faded?
I put it at mixed. Um, it's still pretty exciting. Like, I can't help it when I'm in a bookstore. I'll still take an old, like if I'm at a Barnes and Noble and I see the D&D book, I still might pull it out and flip to the pages just to see it again. It did feel good to show my niece for the first time because she is starting to get into drawing. Like, she didn't even know what a monster manual was, and she
Okay.
started making her own,
Oh, nice.
not knowing that entire world existed. And so I was like, let me show you what you can do later.
How old is your niece?
She's like 12.
Okay. Nice.
And uh, so I would visit. I'm the artist, so I draw, and she wants to draw with me. So
Oh, yeah, yeah. You should show her some of Krista Sully's work as well.
yeah.
Mistress of Monsters. Um, I remember being at a convention, and Chris Seaman is one of the people I'll stop by and talk to a lot. And
Oh yeah,
he's
our buddy. His nickname is Tip.
okay. Well, he had just bought the mini of the Ogre Goblin Hucker,
Okay,
and
yeah,
it was so cool to see how excited he was because he did the illustration
yeah,
in whichever book that appeared in, and
yeah.
to like see his art, reconstructed in a different medium than the one that he worked in.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, that's always exciting. I would love to see a few more minis from stuff I've done. I did some stuff for Kobold that they had a Kickstarter million years ago, and I don't know, something happened. I backed it to get my mini.
oh yeah.
I never got it.
No. Did the
Yeah,
Kickstarter never complete, fulfill,
yeah,
or
it
did you
never.
get lost in the mail?
No, it never. Something had happened with the sculptor, or the the person that would then take it and uh, produce it in, at the time I think they were making them in metal,
Yeah.
but it never finished ever, and that would have been my very first one.
Oh, that
um,
must have been a while ago for
yeah,
metal.
yeah. Now they would
So
all be
you've
printed.
worked with Kobold Press, you've worked with D&D, and then Magic the Gathering. Any others?
I've done some work with AEG. So AEG at the time would have been Legend of the Five Rings, Star Wars, or no, that's Fantasy Flight. So AEG was L5R, um, and then Fantasy Flight was Lord of the Rings, Star Wars,
Oh, so
and
you got to do some Star Wars pieces?
yeah, yeah, a few Star Wars things here and there.
Are you a
Uh,
big Star Wars fan?
yes, I do love some Star Wars. Yes.
I like Star Wars, but I realize I've come to accept and realize like I'm not like a super fan.
Well, I don't know if I fit into a super fan of anything
Yeah,
really. I there's nothing I can do to compare to super fandom. I'm a very good fan.
yeah, yeah. Well, we played in a Star Wars campaign, and one of the things I didn't like, the GM would award XP based off of Star Wars trivia, which was
Oh,
not
okay.
one. I didn't like it because it just totally shatters the immersion of the game.
Sure.
For one, but two, like also, I'm not good at Star Wars trivia, so
Not even like a fun one-liner, or was
oh
that the
sure, sure, but it generally was like specific lore or
okay.
more obscure stuff that you'd have to be like a super nerd to know.
Some of my buddies, like Tom Babby and Eric Gist,
Yeah.
you'll know them. Like Tom has been working with Draco minis, and Eric Gist is a cover artist for Star Wars, actually, and I don't consider them to be super fans,
Yeah.
but the rabbit holes that they can go down without having to look anything up is uh, it's fascinating and impressive. And I still wouldn't consider them super fans. So
Oh.
where I fit in anything in super fandom.
Well, I imagine too, just doing the art like makes them go down some of those rabbit holes anyway, right? Like,
Yeah.
and which I mean, anyone who's been through a YouTube rabbit hole knows that like you end up some weird places. You're like, how did I start with this, and how did I end up here?
Oh, we're illustrators are famous for that. It's called the reference rabbit hole. We're researching something and it leads to another thing and another thing, and I do enjoy that part of my job, is the reference rabbit hole, looking things up. If I'm working on a D&D project and it's specific, I want to see every
Yeah.
illustration that has existed before. I kind of want to get a flavor for everything. And if there was a story connected, I'd want to know the story. I'd want the books that they were in, you
Do
know,
you, do you have a favorite piece you've done?
for
Just in
just in
general.
general. Oh, I'm gonna give you my standard favorite answer. It hasn't come out yet.
Uh, okay. Still chipping away at it.
No, no, no. So the way the illustration world works, everything that is coming out now is
Uh-huh.
something that I've done a year ago.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Yeah.
So, for what's your favorite Magic card? Oh, it's not out yet. You just gotta wait.
Uh, nice. Build the
So,
anticipation.
yeah, I mean, I've got a pile of favorites, but
Uh huh.
when I think about it, sometimes the reasoning isn't like a visual reason.
Yeah.
It's a favorite because of maybe it was an achievement for how I uh, overcame something while painting. Um, there's a card called what's that? Johnny's brother is Jazal. And so Jazal is one of my preferred cards. Ooh.
Oh no, we lost you.
Oh,
At least your video. We still have your voice.
okay. Let me check one thing. My cat jumped over here, and everything started flickering. So
The cat's like, if I can't be on the internet, no one can.
come on, cat! I can't believe you did this.
So while you're figuring that out, just answer a question real quick for Cups. Wanted to know who illustrated the Zoo Mafia backsplash thing. That was Erica Wiley. She did some fun work for us with that, and she's done some other stuff for us too in the past. And you're back.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. We've got a few little critters around here of our own.
I'm aware. So like my office is in the basement, and the one cat likes to try and sneak down here. And the one day I was like, you know what, whatever. If you want to hang out down here while I'm down here, fine. And I was in the middle of a Zoom meeting, and it knocks over like the one of the book holders from on my shelf. All the books go toppling, hits the cord for the computer, unplugs it. I'm like, you are a little disaster, and this is why you're banned for life.
I couldn't ban her. She's just been she wants to replace my mouse pad.
Yeah. So is all of your art work, or do you do stuff for fun as well? I mean, not that your work's
Definitely
fun.
I try as much as I can to do personal pieces. It just doesn't happen as often as I would like. And
a victim of your own success.
A little bit. And
yeah.
I would say I'll take the success comment, but sometimes it's just a little bit of my speed. I'm not fast. Painting is not the fastest means of creating illustrations. So I just can't work fast enough. But what I have been,
I'm not buying that excuse. I've seen Bob Ross. He's pretty fast.
Okay. But I try and add as much personal views into every piece. That's actually a big deal for illustrators or painters to get to, is that realization. I need to make this more my own, and every opportunity I can, I do that.
I'm always amazed at some people that like are super fast. Like everyone has their own pace, right? Like not a judgment or anything like that. But like I know, like, are you familiar with Runehammer at all on YouTube?
It sounds familiar.
Okay, so like he's done a couple RPGs, the Index Card RPG, and he also does like some illustration stuff. But we were in a Expanse game with him. It was online, and he would just steal the Google Meet and just like kind of like draw while we're gaming. And he was like literally like drawing the notes of what was going on and still like participating in the game. And like that stuff always blows my mind that people can do that. I'm like, how are you doing both things at the same time? My head would just ooze out, my head would explode, or my brains would ooze out my ears.
I think sometimes it really depends on what portion of the drawing that we're working from.
Yeah.
If I'm rendering, yeah, I can do that and play and pay attention. I can't do that while I'm concepting. If I'm trying to decide what it is I'm working on, then
okay,
I can't do those things together because it's
so by kind of like abstractly talking about the thing that you're drawing, it's a lot easier than if you had to think about the thing that you were going to draw and then draw it.
Yeah. So yeah.
like your hand, the hand just takes over and does what your ears are hearing.
There's a little bit of truth to that.
Yeah.
And like when I work with a lot of audio help during the process, and so like during the concept phase, I don't have anything that has words. I can't listen to words.
Yeah.
Um, then after that is the where I'm just rendering stuff up, and then I can throw on videos, I can throw on audiobooks. I can kind of multitask like that, and not get well. Not I was gonna say not get too distracted, but like it. So a lot of the rules for illustrators will be a movie is going to have to be a movie I've already seen before.
Okay.
I'm not like drawn into it, like the brush stops moving and all I'm doing is now watching this movie. Yeah, I try and avoid that.
So, do you do any Twitch streaming of your like live draws or anything like that?
No, I used to. I'm fascinated by a couple of things. That's a really great question. And I used to um try to do like a live video feed situation,
Yeah.
or you could do it with a click of a button. Like I was part of a little group uh, that was trying to help other illustrators, and we would do paint overs and we discussion and all that kind of stuff, and we wanted it live, and the things available at the time were just not very good. There was a video thing that worked, but you had to get a separate audio thing, and you had to get a separate this and a separate that, and to get everything to sync up and then go live, it was a nightmare compared to what it is now. Like the Twitch, where it's like all in one package, that did not exist.
Yeah, yeah. I I I also understand there's the extra level of complication that you need to have a separate camera setup for
Yeah.
whatever pet you have off to the side.
Oh yeah. If there was a pet camera, there one here.
Hmm.
I think the dogs are over behind my little banners, which are too tall. Um, but yeah, I would do that. Plus, well, for an artist, there's like the camera where maybe there's one of me, the one
Yeah.
I'm working on, and I would also go so far as to, because it's important to me to show like my references, to show
Okay.
that like that you know being an illustrator and partially trying to instruct new illustrators, trying to dismiss a lot of the ideas that everything we do is magic. We take photos, we have references, that none of this just comes out of the ether.
I'm gonna stick with witchcraft. Um, you start with nothing, they end up with something. No. So you said you're gonna be at Gen Con. A friend of mine is gonna be DMing a game and doing some panels for something called Ink Bus. That is, he's a tattooist and he's got a bunch of his tattooist friends together to play D&D with.
Okay.
So a little combination of art and D&D.
Oh, that should be fascinating. Yeah, I'll be in the art show, mostly stuck there. My wife will be the one running around, not helping me.
Yeah.
And then I'll be painting with a group of magic artists in the magic play zone in another hall. So on Thursday night, actually, I'll be painting one of the cosplayers. I think we're going to be doing maybe she's definitely going to be one of the planeswalkers.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, so that should be.
Do you know which cosplayer?
Her name, I think it's Olivia. I can just check my little thing really quick.
So is that something that's open to the public, a ticketed
Yeah,
event?
yeah. Let's see.
So is it just for like the cosplay and you guys painting and talking, or is that like Magic the Gathering is happening at playing at the same time?
Well, like the players will be, they're usually doing an event behind us,
Okay.
and then everyone's invited to like watch us play. So I'm pretty sure it's going to be at Gilbert Hicks is going to be our model, and I'm not exactly sure which planeswalker she's going to be, but her costumes are pretty well known in that community. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Cool. So people can also check that out. And what booth are you going to be at?
I'm somewhere in the art show. I think I'm number 59, but that really doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
In the art show doesn't have a lot of numbers that are easily maybe one artist will have their booth number up somewhere, but
Yeah, sometimes they have the cards still up from when like you like set
yeah,
up and you can kind of find that.
yeah.
Um
So I know I'll be in one of the rows. Like my neighbor will be Tom Babby, and I'm sure Tyler Walpole will be near me, and Scott Murphy, and a bunch of other magic artists that kind of all do
nice.
this.
Will you be posting that information on your socials before or during Gen Con?
Oh yeah, I'll really try as hard as I can to kind of do all that stuff.
Well, I just say because if people wanted to find you, they could
Oh
go to
yeah,
the description to your links and follow you on social media so they could meet you at the
I'm probably gonna
Gen
try to
Con.
do a little bit better this year. Like take a picture. Like sometimes if you can see the vendor
Yeah,
that's on right across from that row,
yeah,
sometimes that's helpful. Like again, I'm very visual, so it's like if I had a visual landmark, like as long as you can see that vendor, then you'll be able to find our row.
yeah. You're gonna drive all the traffic to your neighbor.
Well, the funny thing is that I got a little side project through eBay. So eBay will have a booth there where they're not selling anything, they're just kind of doing their marketing thing.
Just
And
there, yeah.
so they asked me to design the booth, and I did it last year, but this year, rather than just use all my art, I was able to contact a bunch of the artists in the art show. It was
Okay.
really important to me. Like I didn't really understand what it was going to look like, but when I got to Gen Con last year, it was just all my artwork was just like looming hugely over the entire rest of the art show. And so they're like, what is this? Because they recognize my art.
Yeah.
So I was like, hi, everybody. I'm sorry. I'm kind of trying to not really, I'm fake famous right now.
Yeah, yeah.
And so they gave me the same opportunity. So I'm like, I'm bringing in all these other artists. This is too cool
Yeah.
not to like share this. So now there's going to be all these other artists with their artwork displayed, and of course some of them throughout art that they're going to have like special prints at their own booth, and other kinds of banners and displays to kind of make that connection. So I'm really excited about. There's this. They needed artwork to kind of make themselves fit in, but I'm like, we're using art show people, so it's kind of, it feels really good to kind of spread that out and feature people that will be at the event.
No, that's definitely a super cool thing to do. So, Capto Kaio wants to know: is Mr. Miller a traditional or digital artist, or both? Which do you like best?
I do both. I prefer painting right now, so I'd say about 90% of my illustrations are painted, though I
Yeah,
have a few situations where they end up being digital, like the cards. um I could have done these digital, but I decided to do them by hand, do them uh ink, which I've been afraid of forever. But my buddy Jeff Miracola is an amazing inker, and just like, you can do this, man, you got this. So I just dove into creating all of these illustrations by hand, and then of course I connected it to my character, who that's how you need to have like seen something to shift for some DMs. So I like the idea that not only does he see them, but he'll sketch them.
Oh,
So he
nice.
walks around with a sketchbook, and then he sketches his animals, and that's why they're sketched. That's why they're presented the way they are. The little they also lean a little more old school D&D. Like if you remove the color and background, they would fit in with some of the earlier editions.
So
And
Park says Ajanji, Mentor of Heroes, is an awesome art piece. I happened to have it right beside me and saw it was done by Mr. Miller here.
yep, that's me. That was my first planeswalker. Well, only one so far, but yeah, my first planeswalker. Uh, when I,
I mean, you could have just left it at your first one. You wouldn't. It's technically true.
yeah, yeah. I mean, we're all hoping to get to work on some on the side. I had some other projects that fell through, where there would have been some more art on a board game, but you know how those things go. Projects just change.
Yes, yes, I do. So, what advice would you have for someone who wants to break in and is an artist?
Oh, as an artist, not a D&D player?
Mm.
Wait a minute, I don't
I
have that
mean,
kind
the D and D
of
is pretty
advice.
easy. I think you just find some friends and get some funny shaped dice.
Um, I think the biggest barrier to entry is just the amount of time necessary to have the skills for the realism level for a lot of these things, but it's mostly just working and not quitting. And uh, I would add in as much life drawing as you can do, and workshops. If you can't get to uh, classes, no matter how old you are, try and get into them. Some of the workshops I've been to, the parents have to sign off, but there were the high school kids at the time, the some of the magic artists now I met when they were just trying to start learning as well. Lindsay Look, um, I met her when I was taking my first workshop. Of course, I started really late. I spent about
Yeah.
10 years as a designer before I moved in back into illustration. I went to school for it, couldn't figure it out, and just people just kept throwing money at me because I could use a computer.
Yeah.
And
Well,
uh,
money's good too, right?
yeah, but I just decided that I really needed to take an opportunity
Uh,
to uh, be true to myself. Like I wanted to be a painter forever, so I'm going to go back to this thing. I wanted to work on fantasy stuff. I wanted to work on D&D. I wanted to work on, when I was in school, it was D&D, and I didn't know how to get to work.
yeah.
And I just dove in and got all the help I could.
And where do you fall on the kind of like the ability versus skill discussion?
The the skill as in like it's just you have it or you don't.
No, well, I would say the ability is you either have it or you don't, versus
Okay.
skill where anyone can be an awesome artist if they just draw enough.
Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that. The it's the ability to not quit. It's the ability to do uh uh it's it there's a special word for the kind of practice you do. It's an intentional practice.
Okay.
Like someone could just push a button forever, and you're still going to just be someone who just say you can't be any more skilled the day you started to just push a button. But the skill, the intentional practice to get better at something on purpose rather than just scribbling down, like say you're working from model and you just not paying attention, but you're moving your wrist. That's not the same thing as intentionally trying to get better, trying to get that the like get something to look like what you want it to.
Yeah.
And it's usually just a lot of the illustrators are this kids who kept drawing in school who just didn't stop, just didn't quit.
Because it's funny, like, so my my mom was pretty good at drawing and some painting that she had done, kind of recreationally, and then my dad was actually a jeweler, and my youngest brother went to school, Philadelphia University of the Arts, and he's like I guess they call it a three-dimensional illustration.
Okay.
And like when we were younger, like I used to draw all the time. I used to draw, and for him, and he had asked me years ago. He's like, "Well, why did you stop drawing?" I was like, "Well, I don't know. I just never got any better at it. Like I improved up to a certain point, and then I just like it just was like I hit a wall. Didn't get any better in it, and kind of which I don't know if I lost interest because I didn't get any better, or I didn't get any better because I lost interest.
It could be a little bit of
Yeah,
both.
yeah,
It's not knowing where to get the next level.
yeah,
Like you got to a certain level, like, well, how do I get better than this? Well, that's when that's the not quitting. That's like, okay,
yeah,
now I'm gonna go find a teacher. I'm gonna go find a class. I'm gonna I'm gonna go to the museum and study like how did they do it. It's just that that inability to keep you from achieving that goal. um, and like I granted some things might prevent someone uh, like maybe you're like with sports, maybe you can't, your body just won't doesn't have the heart big enough to be like
yeah.
Lance Armstrong or something like that. But something like drawing, it's just not stopping.
Well, I guess, but like in some ways, that argument feels like a little bit of a cop out to say, but because they're doing this thing, it's about how your body was designed. But like, I mean, couldn't like how your nervous system's designed, how your brain's designed, right? Some people have more aptitude to do certain things. Because like, I agree, like like Michael Phelps, like the guy's like a freak of nature, and like when they kind of dissect like his physiology, he just has a superior physiology to most other athletes. But that doesn't mean he didn't work hard, right? Or even
Right.
like, I think people who like kind of get offended if you're like, oh, you just have a lot of natural talent or ability, because they think you're saying, well, you didn't work hard. And I don't
Right.
think that's really the case either. Like I think you need to do both. But I think like natural ability and talent.
I've got piles of horrible artwork.
Yeah.
I have so much terrible artwork to help show the progression of just terrible, 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 terrible. Okay, a little bit better. Okay, a little bit better. Okay, a little bit better. Because I had art classes in high school that I don't necessarily know if there's a lot of like instruction, like draw this way or draw that way, but it was
Yeah.
just opportunity. I had kept getting opportunities to draw in a different way using a different medium, um, and then when you start getting instruction, this you hold your pencil like that, hold your brush like that. This is how you mix paint. Watching someone do it and then kind of like doing what they did, and failing and then trying again, failing, trying again, failing, trying again. Um, so it was persistence on my part. I know because
Well, I will
I'm
also say I
I'm
believe
stuck
personally believe
anywhere.
desire, in some ways desire trumps everything, right? Like
Yeah,
that
yeah,
that is something that goes beyond everything else. It's like either you have the intestinal fortitude to keep going, or you don't.
yeah. There's a little bit. There is something to that. Just not quitting.
Yeah,
A friend of mine is a premier dancer in the city here, and he just never. He just is like you're not going to stop me from dancing. You can't. I was. He wasn't good at it, but he just kept going. I'm gonna get better at this, and he did. He went from zero to, one of the better instructors in the entire city.
So there's well, I got one final question for you if you get time.
Yeah, yeah.
So Parks has asked a couple times, so I'll throw it out there. With a D&D table full of illustrators, have you all thought about putting a comic book out for your games or even animated shorts?
Oh, that. Um. Uh. No, I don't. Well, we haven't been playing long enough to have that kind of come up. Um. And I think if anyone was going to do it, would be Tony. Who has the He's done some comics before, so if anyone was going to do it, it might be Tony. Maybe it would just be like those little like one shot comic squares or something. But
Guys could be
we need more
the
content.
oatmeal of D&D or the D&D of
Yeah,
oatmeal.
we just need way more content.
Yeah.
Uh, so, not right now. Not right
Yeah,
now.
yeah. Have you seen some of those D&D animation channels? They're insane.
Uh, I haven't seen them on YouTube.
Oh, you should delve in there. There's a bunch of them, and they do really really well.
Okay, that again, like I didn't know that existed.
Yeah,
It's
so
new.
I remember Dingo Doodles, like they put their first video up, and I saw it and it had like 99,000 views. So I was like, "Hey Nate, you should check this out." And like the next day, it was like 99,000 views. It was like their
Oh,
first video. Now that being said, I also believe they were doing like web comics and stuff before that,
yeah.
and had an audience, which I learned later. But it was really interesting to see that channel just grow. Or if you look it up, so Dingo Doodles, Puffin Forest, Z, um, uh, Bashaw. I'm probably butchering his last name. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but he does like the animated spell book. If you search that on YouTube, it comes right up. Although of all the animators, I think he cheats. He's a real animator. He did like the Red Bull commercials. So, but yeah, all those guys are amazing, and they get like buku views on YouTube. So, as always, folks, just remember the links are in the description. So go check them out. Check out the Kickstarter for the cards. They look great. The layout is awesome. It's very very functional. So I think they're going to be super useful for folks at their tables. Any final thoughts before we head on out?
Um, I just agree with you. I've been using these, and if you play a druid, you will find them super helpful. Rather than freaking out, like I don't know what to turn into, and
Yeah,
you
yeah.
just default to bear because I've done that a million times.
Or maybe you go with your random idea and they just pick a card randomly from the stack.
Yeah, I mean, that could happen. You pull out all the CRs and let the DM choose.
Yeah, yeah. If you want your other players to hate you, do that. So
No, I really appreciate being on and being able to chat about D&D. This has been really, really exciting, and I know that my group is going to be pretty excited to watch this.
well, thanks for being on again, and until next time, everyone, stay nerdy.
Yeah, stay nerdy.